Thank you once again for your patience and welcome back to the 2020 ASEAN Leadership and Partnership Forum and Virtual Conference. Our next panel will discuss the issue of promoting entrepreneurship, social enterprises, and startups. It gives me great pleasure to hand over the floor now to Professor Datuk Dr. Denison Jayasooria, who's the co-chair of the Malaysian CSO-SDG Alliance and the head of the secretariat for the All-Party Parliamentary Group of Malaysia for the SDGs, who will be now moderating this session. So over to you now, Datuk.
Thank you, Voon, and good morning, Tan Sri, Michael Yeo, friends. We have had a very interesting first round of discussion where we looked at the challenges ASEAN is facing, and a number of key points were highlighted in terms of the challenges of poverty and inequality, digital divide, the critical issues of human rights and good governance, the impact on vulnerable groups, whether it's the informal sector, migrant workers, women, indigenous people, the need for greater social protection, greater employment opportunities. And I think the session concluded with some key pointers towards small and medium businesses, but there is also the need for micro and small, especially in the informal sector, the resilience of the informal sector and people at the grassroots. So welcome to this second session, where the theme is on promoting entrepreneurship, social enterprises, and startups. The earlier focus was more on defining the problems and issues, but now we are more going to focus on what are initiatives and approaches that have taken place in countries around ASEAN in addressing the COVID, post-COVID, and especially the initiatives from the community, businesses, government, especially in terms of tapping the potential of entrepreneurship. So whether it is big business or small business, the focus is on can entrepreneurship and a business model, can things be different in the COVID, post-COVID scenario? Can business be the same, or should there be a much stronger focus on local economies, grassroots communities, alternative approaches to economic growth? I did hear in the first panel a lot of discussion about growth, GDP, income levels, the reduction. But the question as a sociologist would be, is money the defining indicator of success? Can success or community resilience, sustainability be defined in non-monetary terms? And I think this session might point towards that. We have an interesting panel of people from different countries in ASEAN, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Asia, and Hong Kong, as well as from the UK, but now living in Hong Kong, and also from civil society, academia, private sector, and so there will be a rich interaction. I have suggested to the panel, and they all agreed, that we would take 3 rounds. First round of 3 minutes, second round of 3 minutes, and the third round of 2 minutes. This is extremely tough to stop somebody talking and only get them to speak for 3 minutes or 2 minutes, but I would call for extreme caution in the principle of solidarity to keep to time. I think there is a timekeeper that the organizers said they will put, but 3 minutes. So the first round of questions would be more focus on entrepreneurship as a tool. Can entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, social enterprises, solidarity or community-based economy be a framework that is alternative to the larger businesses, direct foreign investments? Can there be a different economic agenda that can be resilient? That's the first round that we would do. The second round, I'm asking the panelists to cite concrete examples of the change during the pandemic in terms of communities or social enterprises or startups, people. How have they been surviving in a way that is not just dependent on handouts, but the revitalization of local economy? And finally, as the previous panel did, what are the lessons for ASEAN? How can ASEAN as a collective body do much more than just talk, but have solidarity of action, people-to-people mobilization? Now, the first panelist, a close friend of mine, Dr. Ben Quinones from the Philippines, is founder of the Asia Solidarity Economy Council, and I pass the time to him for him to highlight economy, the changes, the new trends that are emerging, and the possibilities. Over to you, Dr. Ben. You got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Dato, and good morning to everyone. Let me just first say that at this moment, because of the COVID condition, the markets have failed. So the big companies, big enterprises have also stalled. Now, if you revisit the law of physics, if you want to move the bigger things, you need a smaller gadget, yeah, in order to move the bigger ones. So to answer the question, which should we prioritize? Is it the macro economy or the local economy? I think we need to focus on revitalizing the local economy, because this is much easier rather than you look at the bigger picture, because you know, when you revitalize the local economy, it is this local economy that will move the bigger machine of economy. So that's the first thing. Now, when we say entrepreneurship and revitalizing the local economy, we do not mean putting, you know, subsidies or charity into the this initiative, but we would like, you know, to encourage entrepreneurship at the local level, in order that, you know, people can really have jobs. They will be able, you know, to develop synergy in developing the local economy, and the investments required, you know, for revitalizing the local economy is very, very small, because right now the major focus, the major priorities are only two: one, food; second, health. Health and food, food and health. And so these are the two things that you can focus on the local economy. And I think it is very, very essential that we convey this message to all, because what we need right now, I heard about partnership. The most important practical partnership is for the big companies or the big you know, multinational or multi-billionaires to partner with local economies and jumpstart the local economy. This is what I see as a more practical solution. And I've heard, for example, even the World Bank suggesting solidarity tax, taxing the multi-billionaires, and even some multi-billionaires are, you know, amenable to that policy. But I firmly believe if the big guys, the multi-millionaires, will invest in local economies, for example, in revitalizing the food economy, then I think it is much better than taxing, because, you know, you just give the money to the government, and then the government will spend that on national projects. But what we need right now is really revitalizing the local economy. So thank you very much. I will add to this later on.
Thank you, Dr. Ben. I think you brought the theme of local economy, the role big business can help in jump-starting, keeping it moving, and so forth. Can I now pass on the time to Dr. Eri from Indonesia? She is with Bina Swadaya. She is also a board member of RIPESS Global, which is a network of global solidarity-based community economies. Dr. Eri, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Denison, and good morning for everyone. So I would like as well underline with the case that if you want to recover the economy of the post-COVID, we have to understand who are the actors of the economy. In Indonesia, the micro enterprises reach the 98.7% of the total enterprise. So they play a significant role in the recovery, economic recovery. So I agree with what the Dr. Ben has mentioned, that we have to focus the recovery as well from the informal sectors. So during the pandemic, the economic slowdown during the pandemic, we can see has triggered actually the new enterprises mostly in the informal sectors. We can see that the jobless bring them to the creating of the home industries, and then new agribusiness by the new farmers are as well increased. So we can see that the consumer has well the new behavior during the pandemic. They prefer more online shopping and prefer to consume healthy food and more organic products. This dynamic actually is good, positive to the environment as well for the healthiness. And in the other side, this dynamic bring as well the opportunity actually for the local economy, where the consumers and producers who are living in the same area doing the transaction. So further, this kind of the interactions can be developed to the concept of the community support agriculture. But however, to support the survive and build back better of the economy, all economic actors, government, middle class, and private sector have to put their attentions on the largest impacted group. But however, it needs solidarity among the development actors. What kind of the support that the micro enterprises needed in the new normal actually? At the first, change the new shopping lifestyle. For instance, buy from friends and then go for healthy food and then etc. And another side, the micro enterprises needed as well more capacity building on how to do the business during the normal following the health protocol, because the productions and processing and marketing should be different following the health protocol to keep the environment healthy. And then the last is that the micro enterprises needed as well to support for simple access to credit, with the simple administrations to access the credit through cooperative, as well the access to financial institutions and to the internet, where mostly now the place where people safely doing the shopping. I stop my talk here, bringing back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Eri. I think enlarging the scope from local economy to home industry, informal sector, community-supported agriculture, the micro, and the support it needs is showing there can be another picture of the economy that is resilient on the ground. Can I pass the time to Mr. Michael Welch, who is based in Hong Kong, Chief Executive of the Pacific Basin Economic Council? You could focus on ASEAN as a whole, or take a global perspective to the issues that we are talking and provide relevance to our context. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, and thank you, Tantri Michael Yao, for inviting us to speak today. And PBEC is obviously a supporting organization, and we really value the dialogue that was happening this morning and yesterday in person. So thank you for that. Yeah, I'd like to I guess, first of all, a caveat, this is going to be my own opinion versus the official line of PBEC. I mean, PBEC has been around a long time, since 1967. And in some ways, due to COVID, we ourselves as a very traditional institution have pivoted as well to be more inclusive and more engaging with beyond our membership typically. And the whole virtual means like today has enabled us to do that and get a wider viewpoint, if you like, on the COVID recovery from various different sectors. So when it comes back to entrepreneurship, I mean, I think it's been an ongoing area of interest, in particular from the larger organizations which make up most of our membership. Dr. Benjamin touched upon the fact that he would like to see these billionaires and larger corporations partnering with local economies. And I can see that already happening in the region, both from domestic conglomerates and regional conglomerates looking to do what they can, especially in the supply chain of the health products, the PPE equipment, making sure those lines are kept open from the private sector, moving things to and fro. In particular, one of our members, Top Glove in Malaysia, one of the largest producers, they also announced 5 factories will be probably built over the next 12 months, creating new job opportunities in Malaysia for that sector. But you know, entrepreneurs typically, when we think about them, are younger generation, the ones at a startup level. But also, there's people more mature like myself. I started my own company, another new one, during COVID, and so I think there's a lot to be said of how we distinguish what entrepreneurship is. I think it crosses all ages as well as gender, and I like to touch upon on one of the ambassador's points that we need to do more to encourage more women in starting up their own enterprises, especially in a COVID recovery. Here in Hong Kong, still 82% of entrepreneurs are male. So I'll leave it there, and then maybe we can talk a bit further on the next point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael, for that broader perspective, supply chain, startups, and diversity of age and gender. I think it's because we always think of young people, but many of us are still young at heart as well. So I think that's great. Can I move on to the co-founder and CEO of InnoLab Asia, based in Vietnam, Mr. Huynh Cong Thang, to give his perspectives from a Vietnamese or regional perspective in looking at this theme of social enterprises, startups, entrepreneurship as a whole, linking it. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, KSI, for inviting me, and thank you, Professor. As an InnoLab, we support and gather all of the stakeholders in Vietnam, including a governmental officer, big corporate startup, institution, to foster the startup ecosystem in Vietnam. And we realized that in COVID, during the COVID-19 pandemic, even those who for those who were affected by COVID-19, but they still create strong value. They still they still make influence. They can still have strong collaboration. Let me take one example that even like one startup, the e-learning for the English for the children in Vietnam. At first, they roll quite steadily, but the content and the quality of the video that persuade a lot of parents register during the pandemic, and it's a very good sign to see that entrepreneurship, if they know how to create the value, and they can survive even during the pandemic. And with more than 70% of the SME in Vietnam, I think the SME is the backbone of any society and for job creation and economic contribution. So I think one of the key factors that I totally agree with Michael Walsh is that we should encourage more the women to contribute and participate in the workforce because the value and the empathy that they have in their heart can contribute more and can help us more resilient and bounce back. In terms of the startup in Vietnam, we kind of happy that some of the startup in Vietnam received the investment from the investor during the COVID-19, and I will stop here so I can discuss further and share more on the social enterprise later.
Sure. Thank you very much for that innovative illustrations of how the bigger players have supported the startups in Vietnam. And Vietnam, of course, is quite an outstanding example in the post-COVID period in economic recovery, as well as the health and containment of COVID as well. Can I move on to Professor Simon Ho of Hong Kong University to share his reflections on this broader theme of defining entrepreneurship and its place in the business sector. Over to you, Professor Simon.
All right. Okay. Thank you for the the delay. Now, thank you for including Hong Kong. I think we can see the problem more from ASEAN plus Hong Kong perspective. Now, of course, in Hong Kong, I think Michael also know well the small businesses and also the startup have been suffering quite substantially. I think for many small business and also small startup, of course, some already left, closed down, and some still for waiting for maybe 3 to 5 more months before they make a decision whether they should close down or change to another line of business. The one thing when we talk to many young people who had a small business, the mentality is still many trying to think they can wait until the government help them to give them the handout or give them the subsidies. My own observation and talk to many people, I think particularly the young entrepreneur should control their own destiny instead of just waiting for the government's very slow movement. I guess if you wait for the government to step in to help you, that may take another 6 months or even a longer time. So my advice to many of my young graduate, young students who have already a startup, I think you have to make up your mind when is the best time to stop something. Stop something doesn't mean you stop other things. As we all know, whenever there are risks, there are also opportunities, right? So I think now there are 2 dimensions. One is the physical business, one is on the online business. Even on the physical business, we have been seeing some new startup in Hong Kong quite recently. For example, I know a team of people, they just started a business 2 months ago. They deliver the food material, fresh, pre-packaged, and delivered to the homes by pre-orders. And they also give the subscriber a recipe how to cook for dinner or for lunch. And the business actually jumped quite well in the last 2 months. Right? So everything cut, washed, well prepared, and delivered to your home. Right? Just you give a phone order 2 days ago. At the same time, we have also seen, the online businesses are always booming, particularly relating to e-business. So as an educator, as a president, I think the university have a very special role to play at this moment. I think we should work closely with many other partners, NGO, government, business, and to address the most pressing social needs. For example, we now, school have no more physical classes. Many people stay at home. And also we know the elderly have a lot of special needs. So quite recently, we worked with a business group. They invented and produced a very, very special kind of disinfection liquid with a very high pitched value. So they donate money, donate scholarship, and run a business competition for our students. So our students can use the real money and also the product to write up a business plan, to write up a marketing plan, and we ensure Japan can actually help many needies. So this is the best time we create shared values, not only for business, but also we try to help people who really need help, to promote, kind of sharing, mutual caring about each other, and also promoting solidarity among people in the community. So it's the best time, we are not only, surviving, but the best time we create more social values. So education, universities, schools have a very special role to play at this juncture. So I think I also believe in other economy in Asian countries. University also a very special role to play at this juncture. So I think this is something we believe, you grab the time, you line up with good partner, you have good goals with a very clear defined social agenda. I think you can create a lot of business as well as social values at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Simon. I think you have brought on some examples of the startups that failed or startups that have been successful, but you also brought out new sectors like the university seeing itself in a very new role within this kind of a climate. Now, I think we've got an idea of how entrepreneurship, business, social business is impacting the ground and facilitating and enabling new opportunities for resilience. I think it will be helpful in the second intervention to give some concrete examples. I think we have heard that some big companies have not been able, they have dismissed workers, or they are not able to carry on the value chain, but others through startups, new innovations have been able to move. And there are also a lot of local economies that have emerged that among the poor, the informal, community-based, they have managed to survive this global close downs. So I thought if Dr. Ben, Dr. Eri, and others could cite examples, whether from communities or from private sector or from startups, that might give us some concrete examples, and whether that needs to be supported, scaled up, replicated in a way that it creates a new avenue. Can I pass back the time to Dr. Ben to illustrate either from Philippines or his exposure through the ASEC, which is a regional body, through the many case studies that he has undertaken to also illustrate, and then move on to the rest of the panel. Dr. Ben, over to you.
Thank you, Dato. I just want to mention the initiative I have taken in my community. It is a subdivision with 700 households, about 4,000 or 5,000 people here. What I did was to open a farmer's market. So I talked to the officers and I told them, let's bring the market here instead of us going to the market, because we are on a lockdown quarantine situation. So it happened that the officials were very, very happy, to accommodate that. So they gave us this covered basketball court where we can gather, the suppliers, farmers. And so every Saturday we have this farmers market. Now that is one example that, of revitalizing local economy. And so what I did was to contact, farmers organization to bring their produce here. And so people gather there to buy the stuff needed for their food. Now, at the same time, because ASEC is conducting this weekly online academy, we are promoting this kind of initiative. And so all over now, among our partners here, they are doing similar initiatives. And we are expanding this dialogue to the cooperatives, because they are also looking for markets for their products, especially the agriculture cooperatives. And so the consumer-supported or community-supported agriculture approach has become a very, very important element of our approach. And so this is right now what we are doing, and to cite, one of those who have initiated this initiative in a particular city. He started with his church, and now he said it's becoming, widespread, that most probably it will cover the whole city. Yeah. So this is the concrete example of how we can jumpstart local economies by mobilizing people, because, we have to reconfigure the market. When the big markets fail, we have to create an alternative one. And this is the best way to do it. And what's happening is that there are people who are putting their money, little amounts of money, into this initiative. And so I think this is the way to go. And we are promoting this, and we are bringing this, to the ASEAN Forum, ASEAN People's Forum, in order that we will be able, to share this with the other civil society organizations, so that they can also impact, their local economies. Thank you, Datuk.
Thank you, Ben. I think a very strong case for community-led alternative economies and community-supported agriculture, farmers market, a local economy is one major option of linking consumers and producers together. And this is very well illustrated. We heard of other examples of food being produced and sold and dispatched on motorbikes and so forth. Dr. Eri, some examples from Indonesia, which is a very large, one of the largest countries in ASEAN, and large population in Asia as well. Over to you, Dr. Eri.
Thank you, Professor Denison. I would like to bring here the experience from social enterprise, and this is the Bina Swadaya Foundations, where I work for. Before this, I would like to introduce you that Trubus Bina Swadaya is a group of social enterprises, and we serve, provide product and services such like agriculture magazine, training center, microfinance cooperative, consultancy, mostly with the strength of the community empowerment, and humanitarian and emergency response. During the pandemic, the Trubus Bina Swadaya itself is suffering. It's impacted by the COVID. So the business is slowing down. To help the others, the Bina Swadaya is needed to be survive and be more stronger. And then three principles have been exercised to overcome these situations. And the first is resilience of the businesses, organizations, and then adaptive businesses and synergy. To implement these principles, some actions has been taken from the Bina Swadaya as a social enterprise. At the first, selecting the businesses that allowed to be open during the lockdown. So we have to be selected, which can go, should be modified and so on. And then the second is switching the business to online marketing, because we realized that people try to not to going outside openly and try to use the online marketing rather than offline. Then some of our services are switching to the online marketing. And the third, optimizing the digital media and for ebook and magazine. As you know that we are producing the agriculture magazine and then as well the book. Now we have pushed to use the digital in producing the magazine and book. And then the next is we try to restructuring the debt for the poor women who loan money from the cooperative, yeah, because the Bina Swadaya has managed as well the cooperative for the particular for the women, poor women. And the next is part of the social enterprise. We support the paramedic in the hospital with the health equipment as well food for them. So Bina Swadaya has supported as well the new entrepreneurs who will start the businesses on agriculture and urban farming. The capacity building on urban farming has affected the increased demand of the increased demand on the young fruit trees and training and agriculture input. So we can see that the help others means the help ourselves as well. So that means the business of the Bina Swadaya as well increased due to that we have give the free capacity building for the urban farmings, the new entrepreneurs through the digital. So I think this is the first that I would like to share regarding our experience. Thank you, Datuk.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eri. I think what we are seeing is Bina Swadaya and your partners were able to make an assessment and revitalize and reorganize, switching into online, digital, and other forms, so that they could survive and keep the community going. I think that's very significant. Michael, what would your intervention be in this context of the organizations or businesses that you work with? How have they been able to strengthen startups or social enterprise or social entrepreneurship? Michael, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. Well, on this particular question, in terms of sort of real life examples, I mean, I won't, repeat what my good friend Professor Simon has been talking about, sort of locally in Hong Kong. I don't want to focus too much on the negative experiences of everybody, because I think that's sort of commonplace in any city or country. But it's a digital frontier now that is literally, we've gone beyond the tipping point where 50% of trade in the region was physical trade, A to B, moving goods from A to B, as it were. We're now looking at digital trade as becoming the majority. And by that, what is under that digital umbrella, I think everybody's embracing. It's been speeded up because of COVID. And so you're seeing a lot of startups, whether just before COVID and then also during COVID, because they've decided just to go for it, because either they've been let go by their full-time employer and have got no choice and think they've got nothing to lose by starting in these particular times, because it gives people time, in fact, to sort of build a better business case in order to raise the capital. Sometimes startups don't invest enough time in evaluating the market and their competition before they launch. So there's this kind of sort of positive in some ways of being able to step back and you do your research and you have the time, because you know the competition is a similar position if it's a unique offering. So obviously Hong Kong, where I'm based at the moment, the secretariat's based here. We've not been able to do so much traveling, so I'll talk a little bit about Hong Kong as well, because we have a financial center. It's a key financial center globally as well as a leading one regionally, and so it's a place to get capital raised, and also it's got a low tax base. It typically encourages a startup environment, but the government has tried to focus startups to really generate 4 different areas, like smart cities, artificial intelligence, things like that. But the big winner is fintech related startups and that whole ecosystem that's been built around. And in fact, I think the government's trying to encourage the other sectors to be more addressed. But funding is definitely here. You've got people like another member is Alibaba. They have an entrepreneurship fund dedicated. Another member, Hendrik Seng, he has his own fund as well, geared towards the China entrepreneurship. And I think it's interesting, if I was to focus on a particular sector that's done really well, is the entertainment sector online, because with a lack of content, being able to film has been a problem. The gaming sector has just gone through the roof in terms of engagement, both in mainland China and the region. And I think entrepreneurs in that space have done really well during this COVID period, just because there's a huge demand for content online. And that builds its own ecosystem and actually creates a new sort of digital supply chain, if you like, of smaller companies feeding into that, whether it's production, art directors, creators, distribution channels, etc. So for me, I think there's always a mindset issue, I guess, that people have. And I think I'm quite proud. I've been in Asia for 13 years, and I think most Asians have a very positive mindset and a can-do mindset. And I think that will bode well in a COVID recovery.
Thank you, Michael. I think bringing the dimension of digital trade, digital supply chain, and for someone outside the context but living 13 years to see Asians as positive, some of us think there's a very strong fatalism as opposed to entrepreneurship drive. But I think Hong Kong, China, the resilient parts that would look for change is definitely evident, and especially in the stories that Dr. Ben and Eri have illustrated, that the poor, in order to survive, find new ways of creating and moving on. So can I pass on to Mr. Huynh Kong Thang from Vietnam, and for you to illustrate. You already did some, but you can do it more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. I would like to introduce you the organization that suffered during the COVID-19 pandemic, but also they didn't stand still and do nothing, but they make a big difference for the society and encourage others to do the same too. So that organization is Lead the Change. It's an organization that helping the youth to unleash their potential and help them with the opportunity with the career or start up their own. So they receive a lot of requests from the youth that supporting themselves, how to navigate themselves through the uncertain time and how they can stay strong, get motivated. And at that time, the organization still suffer. So they try to think a way that they not only make the impact, but also encourage people to do. So that's why they created the Give It Back project, which is round funding using the mentoring one-on-one model. So let's say the mentor gives their free time to mentor, and the mentee contributes the money directly to the beneficial recipients. You see here, one goal hit 2 targets. And after just 2 months, the money that they raise from the fundraising, the round funding, is around nearly 69 million Vietnam dong, and with more than 100 mentors and more than 200 mentees from around the world. And they encourage that other startup and investors do the same. So there is some investor trying to give their free time to help the startup founder to navigate and restructure their team so they can survive during the COVID. And after that, the organization join with the team and together. So for the first period of the project, they support those who work on the street and live hand to mouth. But later, after the second phase, they support the ethnic people from the north of Vietnam, those who really need water, but they have to walk around 20 kilometers daily just to get the clean water to drink. So the second phase of the project, they give the water container so the ethnic people can get the rainwater so they can survive. So this is the example that I want to share, because this one is easy to replicate, and I think Lead the Change, they organize the guidelines so other countries, if they want, they can use it.
Thank you very much. I think the innovation of the youth, the mentor-mentee is definitely a very significant one to address the kind of issues, and it's very innovative seeing from the Vietnamese context. Professor Simon, your views, please.
Okay, thank you. actually, I would say in 4 areas during the COVID period would have the most business opportunities. These 4 areas are related to health, relating to the learners, relating to the family, and relating to the elderly. So I already mentioned real case, a small startup. Actually, for many current startup, they may have a longer plan, but unfortunately, the new round of financing may not be easily available in a short period of time. So they were forced to, change or accommodate or adapt to the new environment. Now, I called a real case earlier about a team of young people. They just start up a new business 2 months ago. They developed the meal recipe. They buy all the material, wash, cut, and home delivery by their own people. All right. So the business seeing developing quite well over the last 2 months. Though I think the experience we learn is the best way is to combine online, offline, and physical kind of activities. So you can always promote the human kind of interaction. I think it's probably the best way during the COVID to promote, new business and new values. For example, in Hong Kong, until quite recently, most restaurants are not allowed to open in the evening, right? So people either you can just buy takeaway or you just buy things from supermarket to cook. In fact, there's a huge market, for many families in Hong Kong, for many new couple, I know, they seldom cook, some never cook, some always live in an apartment, even without kitchen. But even with a kitchen, they don't even know how to turn on a cooker. So I think this best time to really come back to the family. You learn how to cook, you share, you talk to your family member. You can creatively produce something you like for your meal. So the line of business is, you don't need to worry about buying, cleaning, cutting, everything, right? So once you put an online order, the thing would freshly come to your home maybe 2 hours before your time. And then they also, the new startup, they form a club on online club. So after they try the meal, after they try the recipe, they can share experiences and their experienced tutor to help them to learn how they can make a better cook next time for similar meal or dishes. So it's a kind of business, you not only deliver good or services, you also promoting people's interaction, you're promoting family harmony, you are promoting communication among family members. You also, encouraging people to share in a community. So I think that's the best time, we think about, not just business, but at the same time, what are the most social need, social value we treasure at this very, particular period of time. I also mentioned our university work with business organization on a business plan on delivering very, very innovative disinfection kind of product. And in fact, we also try to educate students to let the community know there are many, many ways you can preserve the hygiene and also how to use disinfection product wisely and properly. So it's also relating to the immediate concern about health in families. So this is something I think we can think about. But at this moment, we let more students have this opportunity to interact with people, with the business organization, NGO to work together, right? So I guess as I mentioned at the beginning, but you need to be turned around very fast. You need to be very lean to start up. I think you have to, put aside many other overhead. Lean startup, we have been talking for a long time, but during the COVID time, our youngsters have to really exercise what to mean by being lean, how to have a lean startup. Those are concepts they have to really to put into practices nowadays. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Simon. I think you have brought in a new dimension, which I think as a challenge came up in the first session, but really bringing social values back into the agenda, as well as family, whether it is a simple thing as cooking a meal or having a meal together, the lockdown has had other effects that created new startups, but also enabled new levels of solidarity. I think in some of the examples Dr. Ben has illustrated with Dr. Eri before, they have even had community kitchens as an option in informal areas or in very tight accommodation areas like in migrant communities or street vendors who are actually doing a collective kitchen as a way during this lockdown period. So thank you for all the sharing of the rich variety and experiences that businesses have and during this period, its impact. I know our time is passing on, but we want to do a third round to bring both our understanding of entrepreneurship, startups, social economy, solidarity, community-based. Can we bring it to the ASEAN agenda of One ASEAN, and how within this pandemic period, many migrant workers in some countries were demonized or ostracized during the period, but how can we foster through economic exchange and through the stronger ASEAN solidarity and exchange through online marketing or values or even education in the new normal, as it is called, some pointers toward that. But we have less time, so it's just 1 or 2 minutes to each person. Can I go back to Dr. Ben? What would you say would be an ASEAN agenda that you feel could be supported by member states, but more by ASEAN people to people networking? Ben, to you?
Yeah, thank you. 2 points. The first point is that we have to look into what the local communities are doing in order to survive, because they will provide proof of concept that these initiatives are ongoing, whether start-up or ongoing. Instead of looking for solutions, ideas, let us look for what is already happening on the ground and let us support that. That is a very concrete agenda that we need to put into the agenda of governments, the private sector, because right now, it is actually the local economies, the local people who are providing, alternatives in order that the local economies can revitalize. The second point I'd like to make is, I think this group, the group that we are having now, should carry this message. Maybe we could replicate this at the ASEAN Forum in order that we can convey the message that we need to look at initiatives at the local level so that we can support whatever startup or ongoing enterprises that are creating new innovations in order to revive the economy. These are my 2 points. And
Thank you.
I would like to reiterate that, maybe a cooperation with PBEC and all the others to carry this message to ASEAN will be a big step forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I think Ben is doing a small promo for a next workshop that he might invite all these panels and other speakers to join in. Thank you very much, Ben. Dr. Eri, over to you briefly, please.
Yeah, I would like to consider that not all the small enterprises and micro enterprises has an access to the digital with the online marketing. So might be they have not the handphone even, yeah. So that means we have to, because as I said that the 98% of the micro enterprises are dominated in the economy Indonesia. So the platform, the strategy of the economy should be as well considered that not all the people has an access to the digital and internet. So that the offline marketing, that means using the cooperative face-to-face marketing, it should be as well still be developed and considered in the policy. And the second, I will propose that the ASEAN should make like appreciations for the success of social enterprises to inspire more startup in doing the same way. So this is not just entrepreneurs but social entrepreneurship. So and the third, that affirmative to women. So I think the discussions in the morning as well today has recognized that women play an important role in the entrepreneurship, in the micro entrepreneurs as well. So they have different issues needed to be tackling beside the entrepreneurship, and this is caring the family. So that I suggest that capacity building specifically for women is suggested. And then the framework in providing caring support for the women entrepreneurs is needed. So enable them to do the business better if they have as well support in the caring activities. And the last, but not least, is the incentive as well for the social enterprises or the SSE communities, because the social enterprises is doing not just only the business, but they as well bring the social missions in eradicating the poverty and give the solutions for the social problems. I think they deserve the incentive to what they have been done in form of the text or another forms that we can learn from the policy from among the countries of ASEAN. So thank you. This is my.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eri, for those interventions. Can I pass to Michael? Your points, please.
Yeah, I mean, I just start off by making a recommendation that for any budding entrepreneurs out there listening or to this, that try to pick an area that you're not touching government regulation too much. I think that's normally a stumbling block for where entrepreneurs are sometimes running far ahead of policymakers until governments become digital in their own path. I would suggest staying away, especially from my own background from aerospace. That can be the biggest Achilles heel, is government regulation, not being able to keep up with innovation. So look at low-hanging fruit value add in terms of your product target base. The second point I would say is, I love my sports. I always think sometimes take the football analogy in terms of recommending in terms of a policy, a little bit radical, I guess, but I would say bring this message into the school level at a primary, secondary, and then university college. Obviously 3 kinds of curriculum because of different age groups, but then using digital means in order to deliver that, because obviously a lot of all schools, as Professor Simon has mentioned, are conducting Zoom classes or equivalent from next week, 1st of September. Nobody's got a physical class, and they're using apps. So the policy I would recommend is, how can we utilize all of this activity? How can we quantify it and analyze it to make teaching more integrated, and in order to uncover the next entrepreneurs? Yes, I'm not dismissing the issues we have in the local communities and around the region right now to save companies, save jobs, save livelihoods, and address the poverty sector. But next generations coming through, sort of from the age of 12 upwards, how can we make them start thinking about ideas of how to be good entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, impactful investment as well? So that would just be my second point. My last point would just be, don't underestimate the value of internships with larger companies in order to understand your direction of what you want to do. So maybe government can incentivize private sector to allow more internship placements in the local economy, because larger companies are suffering as well. There's a there's a dilution of talent, but I think the internship level, where it doesn't really cost the big companies money per se, it's more about time, that could be somehow incentivized by government to do more. So then students have that opportunity to learn from peers and then decide on their entrepreneurial track. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. Over to Mr. Huynh.
Well, I totally agree with the panel, especially Michael. You just tick on my point about the digital tool. I totally agree with that. So I only add one more last point is that the labor mobility among the ASEAN region. So we should find a way where we can help the workforce can move around the region to maximize their potential and add value to the corporate, because that can create the workforce with various background and diverse and make our culture even stronger with the growth of new technology. And as one friend of mine from Thailand only recommend us before, in terms of the new technologies coming up, so what left behind is our culture. And in ASEAN, we have strong culture and we should promote that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Over to Professor Simon.
Okay, thank you. I think my wrapping up kind of observation is there are two levels. One is how we can really promote multi-sector collaborations in each economy, including business sectors, NGOs, social enterprises, the government, the university. I think there's still a lot of room we can work together during this period. The second is about across economy in the whole region, ASEAN, including Hong Kong, can enhancing further collaborations. I think as a whole region, I think we have a common problem and common values. For example, how we see health, how we see education, how we see family, and how we see the elderly may not be the same as in many other regions. So we have some common values to share, and we may need some common solutions to work on. For the startup and also for the young people, of course, from the education perspective, we always encourage 5 principles. I would say the 5 Ps for the entrepreneurship, whatever, startup business or social enterprises. I would like to repeat the 5 P. We always inform our students. The first P is the passion. You really need the passion to know what value you want to deliver. The second is the purpose. The third is the plan. Okay. The fourth is the people. You need a very trusted team of people to work together. And lastly, you really need to know what is the profit model, the profitability. All right. So the 5 P would be important during the good time, but during the bad time, during the COVID period, this 5 P would be even more important than other moment of time. Lastly, I think as a university, we do a lot of entrepreneurship education. Entrepreneurship education is not teaching students to start up, but they learn a lot of other skills, competency, through learning entrepreneurship. For example, how to improve your communication, improving your thinking skill, and also increasing your creativity. So I think we will not stop during this time promoting our entrepreneurship promotion education in university setting. In fact, we need to work with more close partners to enhance our education on this dimension. So I hope we can, this kind of dialogue can be continuing even after today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I thank all members of the panel for their articulation of the issues and sharing their models and their recommendations. Let me just quickly close the session. I think we are beyond time already now, but we started late. Let me just sum up it in 8 points. I wanted to just do 3, but the richness of the discussion and also taking some points from session 1. I think first that has come out quite strongly is that we need to strengthen local economies. It is the local community, the neighborhood, local economies, and the resilience, especially of the bottom 40%, that can address poverty, inequality, and so forth as first. Second, while a lot of target groups and focus was highlighted of target groups, I think women were highlighted in session 1 and session 2 as vulnerable and underrepresented, but women, like the Grameen example and so forth, have been the most faithful in microcredit and so forth, capacity building and so forth. Thirdly, the digital markets. This has opened new possibilities, but because of the digital divide, infrastructure and so forth, and the resources, then more needs to be done in preparing people. So the digital markets, and with that, fourthly, digital content. I think this was highlighted whether at the university level or even in entertainment because of the lockdown, then gamers and others who use the digital platforms and created were significant. Fourth. Fifthly, at an ASEAN level, internship, mentor-mentee programs are still relevant from the ancient old guru and student kind of approach. Other point, 6, labor mobility in the ASEAN level. Of course, now in COVID, it's restricted, but often labor protection and so forth at all levels is important and cross-cutting. Seventh, I think a point that came out very strongly in the context of our brother sharing from Vietnam, as well as the Hong Kong experience of common values, common solutions. ASEAN is different in its cultural, religious appreciation of other continents in the world, and that value based on family and so forth could be tapped. And finally, reviving in many ways the curriculum of entrepreneurship education across all of ASEAN. And now with the digitalized avenue for universities and teaching, the sharing of content, like what Dr. Ben said, the SSE online academy is a kind of an example of learning, sharing and learning. It's living labs that people participate. So those are some points, and thank you once again to the panel. Thank you to Tantri Michael Yeo and the KSI team. And I hope these discussions will input into the ASEAN process to strengthen the people-to-people dimension, community-to-community, as we would say it in Malaysia, from kampong or village to village, in that context of strengthening ASEAN and ASEAN resilience in facing not just this crisis, but all crises to come as well. Thank you very much, and I hand over the time back to Voon and Tantri Michael. Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you, Datuk, and our distinguished panel for an excellent discussion on the issues and challenges on promoting entrepreneurship, social enterprises, and startups in the ASEAN region. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of the 2020 ASEAN Leadership and Partnership Forum and Virtual Conference. Thank you for joining us over the course of the past 2 days. We hope you have gained much insight from its various sessions. We look forward to hosting you next year in Brunei, as they will be chairs of ASEAN 2021. And hopefully we can all meet face to face by then. Thank you once again for being with us, and have a great day ahead.